Nerves. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Monday, May 19th, 2025. Nerves are things that can make you great or they can make you clamp up and not able to perform. They can make you schwitz. They can make you excel. It's that feeling in your body when you're doing something that you know has a chance for greatness and a chance for great failure. Yesterday was a day in the sports world that was all about nerves, all about who's going to be able to overcome the natural nerves that take place as you enter a Game 7. Would the Oklahoma City Thunder be able to overcome last year, every year's playoff failures, franchise failures, get into the conference finals as they try to take a 68-win regular season, one of the most dominant regular seasons of all time, and get into the conference finals against Anthony Edwards and the T-Wolves? Would the Toronto Maple Leafs finally overcome all of the postseason failure? Is it even possible to overcome all of their postseason failure and take out the Stanley Cup champs at home in a Game 7? So many other things happen with nerves, Coca. If you're watching this on Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, thank you. Hit subscribe and welcome. Yeah, I'm in a hotel. Why? Because in about 2 hours, I'm going to be a little nervous. I'm going to be watching my youngest child, my son, graduate college. It's the final college graduation for me as a father. I think that's a very safe assumption to say. I've got a few nerves. I don't think my son has nerves. I think he's ready. I don't remember. I was thinking back to my college graduation at Camp Randall Stadium, University of Wisconsin in 1990. Yes, that's true. 1990. I didn't have nerves either. I think maybe my parents did. I'm proud. I'm a proud father. I wonder whether or not John Rahm had nerves. That's why he collapsed in the PGA Championship. There's another one. Scheffler won by like 5 strokes. I wonder whether any of the McLaren drivers, maybe Leclerc, I wonder who had nerves in the F1. Verstappen won that big Grand Prix. You know what? Here's the thing. I've had conversations with players about nerves, and it's the same thing as lawyers and doctors. I realize that professional athletes are no different in any way in that regard because everyone feels nerves about that which they're doing, they're trained to do, they're paid to do. When there is a moment that is not ordinary, that you know in advance is extraordinary, it opens the door, no matter what your personality is, to feel nerves. And we would talk to players and say, don't be nervous. Don't show it. Don't let the other side see you sweat. We'd be taught in law school when you're doing litigation, don't let the judge or the jury, don't let anyone see you sweat. We have this society, Coca, where no one wants to let the other side know of any weakness. It's like we don't want to have weakness, feel weakness, be weak. So when a professional athlete is willing to talk about it, I want to listen, and I want everyone to listen because it's so brilliant. You've got a player, SGA, who is likely going to win the MVP for the entire league. I could argue Jokic deserves another one. The vote's done before the postseason starts, yada, yada, yada. He's carrying a franchise on his back, a franchise that has just been the subject of great failure. Did they make it to the conference finals with Durant and Harden? They may have. I can't even remember. They made it to an NBA finals, even above that, but they certainly haven't won one. And the view is that this is their time. They're actually favored tremendously to beat the T-Wolves. Listen to what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander said about Game 7.
I was nervous, to be honest. Just knowing, like, what's on the line. We've worked so hard the whole, 82-game season. We've all worked so hard in the summer. And to know, if you don't bring your A game, it could all be over with and all for nothing. But I think that nervousness motivated me and helped me play today, helped me give my all on both ends of the floor, and I used it to my advantage.
I really do love that because very few athletes will admit that the nerves actually did something for them, helped them. They had that adrenaline, if you can actually gather the adrenaline that comes from nervousness and you can corral it into performance. Think about what happened in yesterday's game. The Nuggets are up by 11 in the first quarter. And in the NBA, it doesn't matter if you're up 11 in the first quarter or down 11 in the first quarter. However, when you're at home in a game 7, you're against Jokic, you're against the Nuggets, as hurt as they were with Gordon with his hamstring. By the way, the fact that he played at all, Aaron Gordon with a grade 2 hamstring, is incredible. We watched what happened in game 6 when he grabbed at the back of his leg. It's the second worst thing as an executive that you see a player do. The first is when a pitcher grabs at his shoulder or elbow. The second is when any player grabs at the back of their leg because it's hamstring. And then you're paying attention. Before we would get, side note, Coca, we would have the video people show us whether a player was grabbing low or high, because there's a hamstring that's attached to your tuchus and a hamstring that's attached almost down to your knee. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not at all into anatomy, except I do know that. And so there's a difference as to which part of the hamstring. Is it the center part of your leg? The hamstring was always a problem for us because, like any team, any player, it can be 2 weeks, it can be 2 months. And it depends on how torn it is, and it depends on where it is. And so you saw Aaron Gordon, there's video of him actually pressing in. It's what you do. You press in. He was sort of mid to high hamstring. And then it was announced he had this grade 2 hamstring. The higher the number, the worse it is. So a grade 2 hamstring is a worse tear. It's just degrees of tear. The feeling is there's no chance that he plays in game 7. And then it was announced that he was playing in game 7, which to me was an unbelievable thing done by a player who has let's just say, he's backed by a long-term deal. I do not believe that a player would have played going into free agency with a grade 2 tear of the hamstring. They would have had to prove health in order to sign as a free agent. So this was the perfect storm, perfect situation, game 7, signed player, etc. However, I certainly do give him credit. That said, the Nuggets were just outmatched, completely outmatched. Jokic, he took 9 shots, man, scoring 17 in the first half. That's just not enough. You have to come to play in the second half. It was close, and then Thunder went on a run, and in the second half, it was not even a game. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to criticize Jokic for what I know to be true, which is he can't wait for the season to be over. He's excited to go home. He's excited to drink beer. He's excited to be done. It's not like he plays for the love of the game, in my opinion. But by the way, a whole lot of players don't play for the love of the game. I'm sorry to say. They play because it's their job. Just like many of you do your job. If you don't love it, it's your job. But listen to what Jokic said. The more important thing is when you have an interim coach, and remember that the Nuggets fired their coach because they felt they would not be able to have a long playoff run with Mike Malone as the coach. And at the time, the Nuggets were at the 3 seed. They could have fallen into the play-in tournament. There was a whole lot of conversation about why they made the coaching change they made. But what was clear is that Mike Malone had lost the room, and now the players came out after game 7. They love David Edelman. They would like him to be the permanent coach, which is very common. Players get excited about their interims, totally normal. The front office does not regard that at all when deciding what they're going to do. Edelman may get the full-time job, but it's not because the players came out after an emotional game 7 and getting their butts kicked. The real question is, can the Nuggets win a title? They won it once. Are they just the 2016 Cubs? Are they just the 03 Marlins? Are they one of the last 6 champions in the NBA? Are they the Bucks of 21? Frankly, are they the Lakers of 20? When Jokic was asked this question, the one thing you could expect is honesty, though I was surprised, Coca. I thought the way Jokic would answer this was totally different. But listen to what he answered when he was asked whether he thinks this Nuggets team can win a championship.
We didn't, so obviously we can't. If we could, we will win it. So I don't believe in those if stuff. So we had the opportunity, we didn't win it. So I think we can't.
Jokic and I in another world would be best buddies. Two consequentialists just talking about life. Does this current team have the ability to win a championship? That is the easiest layup answer. It's like the reporter put it on a T-form. What would you like him to say? Yes, we can. Let's run it back. He watched his team. He knows very well that his team couldn't compete with OKC. He knows that his team with Russell Westbrook is just not good enough, even though he's playing for, a couple $1 million. He's not even worth that. He knows that he's got to get more out of Murray, who is about to enter a huge extension, turning the ball over way too much inconsistency. And so Jokic just comes out and says, all right, I'm going to be honest with you. No, we can't. You know what that means to a front office? If they're able to say it, that's when you know you've got to make changes. But you need a front office willing to acknowledge, not saying, oh, if Aaron Gordon weren't hurt. Oh, if we had blah, 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 blah. Nope. You guys lost. You're not good enough. It's sort of like the Miami Heat looking at their team and saying, oh, but for Jimmy being Jimmy, we'd be great. No, not the case. So now we're heading into a conference finals where we've got the Pacers and the Knicks. We've got the T-Wolves and the Thunder. And people are excited. It's going to be the 7th different champion in the NBA in 7 years. I would assume that the coach, Rick Carlisle of the Pacers, I would assume he is concerned to win the title because it will mean that he will get let go, as all of the coaches have, other than Steve Kerr and Joe Mazzulla of the previous champions. They've all been let go. I would assume there is some sort of excitement in these cities. The Indianapolis Pacers, the Indiana Pacers, they've never won. They have a chance for their first. Think about that. The T-Wolves have never won a championship. If the T-Wolves play the Pacers in the finals, we're guaranteed a franchise who's never won. There's nothing cooler. It changes the whole focus, the history. It changes the legacy. It is a big deal. The New York Knicks, of course, are the biggest story, the biggest draw in the conference finals. They haven't won a title in 52 years. If you want Jalen Brunson to be better than Clyde Frazier, you got to get jewelry. If you want Patrick Ewing not to be considered the greatest Knick of all time, you got to get jewelry. Yes, I understand the inconsistency, but it's Ewing. I love him. I know he has no jewelry. Just stop it right now. So good for the NBA. I think the NBA would like the Knicks and T-Wolves because then you get a bigger market in Minnesota than in Oklahoma City. You get Anthony Edwards that you can talk to about being the new face of the league, and you have a guarantee. One thing that is bothering me greatly is that the Seattle Supersonics won a championship in 1979, and everyone's talking about the fact that the Oklahoma City Thunder have never won a title. You'll see it all over social media. That's not true. When a team relocates, it's a relocated team. The Sonics relocated to Oklahoma City. That franchise does have a championship. I don't want to make it too crazy for you, but it's just true. I was watching the Celtics-Knicks, Coca, the clincher, and one of my favorite things to talk about is ridiculous stats that are found on Twitter. And you got to check them, and then you're still not sure whether it's true. But this is a good one. When the Knicks were playing the Celtics, we heard two things. One, no reigning NBA champion had advanced past the second round since 2019. That's a hell of a stat. That forget the fact that it's different champions every year. We're hearing that you can't even get back to the conference finals. Forget the NBA finals. So when the Celtics were playing in Game 6 against the Knicks, the thought was, yeah, the Knicks are going to win this series because no reigning NBA champions advanced past the second round since 19. Then, 2 seconds later on my feed, there's something in the NBA called the Shamet spell. The Shamet spell is a New York Knicks player who has been on different teams since 2019. And every team he's been on has lost in the second round in 7 games. Well, he was on the Knicks. This was before game 6. So the thought was, my God, the Knicks are going to lose in 7 and the Shamet spell is going to continue. But if the Knicks lost in 7, that would mean that the first stat wouldn't continue, which is no reigning NBA champ has made it past the second round. Something's got to give, no matter what. So I love when there are stats put out in front of us where both things cannot happen. So definitionally, we're allowed to carry something further. And the Shamet spell died because he advanced. So now we just carry the no reigning NBA champion. I want to talk about one of my favorite cities. You know how I love Toronto. You know how I love Canada. Very loyal audience in Toronto and Montreal. Thank you very much. I am terribly sorry to people in Toronto who had to witness what happened in the second round against the Florida Panthers. The Leafs, the Maple Leafs, were up 2-0, and they lost the series 4-3. They lost the last 2 games in Toronto 6-1, games 5 and game 7. They did come back and win a game 6 that was exciting, but my God, it is time for us to acknowledge something that would have been impossible during my time with the Marlins. During my time in Miami, and this was post Van Beesbrook in the 90s, the Panthers were a hash mark, is what we called them, meaning they never even rated. They were run into the ground by Michael Yormark, who absolutely devalued all of their properties, all of the value, all of their revenue. They had total issues with ownership. It was just a mess. Vinny Viola comes in. He brings in Matthew Caldwell, who is likely amongst the best team presidents that South Florida has ever seen. And the Panthers are now going to their 3rd straight Eastern Conference Finals. They have a chance to go to their 2nd Stanley Cup, 3rd Stanley Cup. Holy cow. If they beat the Hurricanes, Coca, the Panthers will have been in the Stanley Cup 3 years in a row. That's, if you win a 2nd cup, 2 in a row, wait a minute. You're 1 year away from doing what LeBron did with the Heat, where he won 2 titles, 4 years, 4 finals. The Panthers are this close to being a dynasty that would then have a chance to either tie or be better than LeBron's Heat dynasty. I never thought of that till just now. That's why I love being live. Things come into my head that I just hadn't thought of. Meanwhile, the Toronto Maple Leafs just have no chance. They have no chance. They can't win a game 7. They can't win a winner-take-all game. They're 0-7 since 2018. They've gotten outscored 28-9 in these games. Where is it the nerves that get them? Is it all of a sudden that when a series is tied at 3, they say, wait, we're not good enough to be here? What is it about the preparation? It's different players. It's not the same players since 18. Funny little thing about that. Do you know how often the Chicago Cubs talked internally about the curse of the GOAT, or the Red Sox before they won their first World Series in 2004 talked internally about the fact that they hadn't won a World Series in 80 years, whatever the number was, or the Cubs hadn't won in 100 years, whatever the number was? I'm sure you want to believe the players think about that and talk about that, or the front offices think about that and talk about that. We don't, and they don't. It actually doesn't occur to us because, yeah, it's true. It is true. I'm wrong. It's true. The Pacers have never won a title. It's true. But do you think Halliburton pulls Turner aside and says, listen, we got to do this. We got to do this for Rick Smits and Reggie Miller. We got to do this for George McGinnis. No, literally doesn't come up. So the fact that the Maple Leafs keep losing in these decisive game 7s, I'm not sure it's wholly relevant to the current team, but it certainly makes for a hell of a narrative. And now we've got 3 out of 4 conference finals teams in the NHL are the same as last year. The difference is you've got the Hurricanes instead of the Rangers, who are going to play the Panthers. In the Western Conference, Stars Oilers. I'm not taking the victory lap, Coca. I mean, I could take it on Brandon Hyde. I don't want to do that. This weekend, Brandon Hyde got fired by the Baltimore Orioles, And for those of you who are fans of the show and are paying attention, when we made our predictions in May, we told you that Brandon Hyde was likely going to get fired. We told you that a manager would be fired. We didn't realize it would be 3, but it is. The Pirates, the Rockies, and now the Orioles have all fired their manager. I think we got extra credit when we said it would be Brandon Hyde because we could not believe how bad the Orioles had been, and we said it cannot continue. David Rubenstein, the new owner, is going to do something about this. He has no choice. Well, he did, and he put out his president of baseball operations to make a statement, and the statement was quite something. What Mike Elias said, now you have to keep in mind that we are only 17 days removed from Mike Elias saying we are, quote, very confident in Brandon Hyde. When we're experiencing failure, he said, it's really important in that job and in my job too to be consistent with your approach, and he's doing that. The dreaded vote of confidence strikes again. We would always know when we were going to send our GM out to say, hey, we've got confidence in the manager, because meanwhile, we were interviewing people and thinking about when we were going to fire the guy. We were just waiting to figure out, do we want to win a game? Do we want to lose 2 in a row? We're not going forward. We can't stand going forward with this manager. Go out there and give a vote of confidence. 17 days ago, the vote of confidence comes. Then, this was yesterday, this comes out, or was it Saturday? It may have been Saturday. So 15 days later, here is what Mike Elias said. As the head of baseball operations, the poor start to our season is ultimately my responsibility. Part of that responsibility is pursuing difficult changes in order to set a different course for the future. And then he just copied and pasted. I want to thank Brandon for his hard work, dedication, and passion all these years, for returning the team to the playoffs, winning an AL East championship. His many positive contributions to this organization and to Baltimore will remain. Now sit down, everybody, or turn up the volume if you're listening to this on the way to work, because Mike Elias, at the end of his statement, thank God, we wish he and his family the best. Side note, we wish him and his family. It's funny when people try to sound smart with grammar and they're not. And it's like when they use John and I, and they use it wrong because it should be John and me at the end of a sentence, but they think it sounds more intelligent when you say John and I. Stick to baseball, man. We'll take care of the grammar. Wishing him and his family. Are you really wishing him and his family the best? Sorry, it's just funny to me. I don't know why we all have to say that. I don't think that I've ever thought of the family of a person who I fired. Now, of course, I'm not saying that you don't, or that it's not something that, oh, this stinks for him. He's got a few years left in his deal, or 1 year left in his deal, or he's an employee at will who's got to make life changes because he or she or they are losing their job. Of course, you think about it, but let's not be disingenuous, please. The Orioles are 15-30. They're 9.5 games back of a wild card, and this is a team that was supposed to compete to win the American League East, if not win the AL East. I wonder why this happened. Is there a chance this happened because we told you before the season started that the Orioles did not do anything to make up for the loss of Corbin Burns, their best pitcher? Did we tell you before the season started that eventually, Charlie Morton, you're going to be stuck paying a guy who stinks, and you're going to be the last person holding the rubber? Did we talk to you about the fact that signing a bunch of guys, if you're not lucky enough for them to turn out to be Seth Lugo, which is what we want our GMs to do, find me the diamond in the rough, find me the undervalued asset, and you whiff? The reason why Mike Elias is not being let go is David Rubenstein has no choice but to keep him, and he definitely was the person behind the Brandon Hyde firing. Brandon Hyde was not his manager, number one. Mike wasn't his president of baseball ops either. But think about this. What new owner-itis does, the way it manifests itself, is when you see yourself losing and you feel yourself being embarrassed about the performance of your team, you go to your GM first and you say, hey, we got to make a change. During the offseason, they made a change and they got rid of Freddie Gonzalez. You heard him during a sit-down on Nothing Personal a few months ago, where if he were still on the staff, he would have been the perfect person to take over for Brandon Hyde. Brandon Hyde was an interim manager for the Marlins for one game. We brought Brandon Hyde in to be the bench coach for Freddie Gonzalez when we had Freddie. The irony is Freddie could have been the bench coach for Brandon and then taken over for him. He's a good baseball guy. Hyde's been there since he lost 100 games 2 years in a row, and they let him stay and be the skipper of the team as it was in position to win. Being a manager, yes, you get paid a lot of money. You do. But the job security, less than great, which is why you, as a manager, you try to get as many guaranteed years as you can. Because when you do that, it gives you an opportunity to at least earn that level of money for more years, knowing that when you come back, you're likely to be a bench coach or in the media or an assistant to the GM or president, something that will not pay what managers get paid. It is impossible that Brandon Hyde will ever make that sort of money again. I'm finding myself feeling badly for him. He was .421 and .492 in his 7th year as manager. But remember, overseeing the rebuild, you're going to get a ton of losses on you. So David Rubenstein thought that he was doing something to help his team. Somehow his baseball people said, hey, just sign Tyler O'Neill if you don't mind. We're going to give him $50 million. It's fantastic. It's huge. He's going to come in and really help our lineup. And for pitching, we'll get Charlie Morton. He'll be fine. We'll sign Sugano, the Japanese pitcher, who's a middle-of-the-rotation guy at best. We'll give him $13 million. It's way better than going long-term with a Corbin Burns the way the Diamondbacks did, where you're only going to be subject to injury and lack of performance or up against it with people in your division. And the owner buys into that philosophy until it stops working. The only thing I would say to David Rubenstein right now is that 45 games into a season is really tough. Right now, they're 15 and 30. They were 15 and 28 when he got fired. The Orioles have not won since the firing. It is a nightmare when you fire your manager and you don't start winning games immediately. You really want to show the fans, you want to show the media, hey, we know what we're doing. But of course, it's a very hard thing to time, though I could argue that you could look at pitching matchups, you could look at opponents, and then decide. But this is about right when a team makes a firing. Coca, what day did we fire Jeff Torborg in 2003 and have Jack McKeon take over? I want to say it was like May 31st or it may have been earlier. It could have been May 21st. I don't remember, but it's sometime around now when a team is saying to himself, man, this isn't good enough. We expected better and we've got time to make the change. Well, as the Orioles are looking up when did I make that? 38 games into the season, we got rid of Torborg. And these guys fired him 43 games into the season. It's close enough. It's close enough. I'm sorry, Coca. What do you need me to do? What can I do to be helpful to you right now? Do you want to just go to a break and hope that everything gets better? All right, we're going to take a break. So let me just give you some insight. Yes, I'm in a hotel. Do you know why? Because my son's graduating and I didn't want to miss a show. So I'm awake, dressed for graduation, doing a show because I love doing shows. I don't want to not do a show. And Coca's yelling in my ear, making me schwitz because I have nerves because the internet's bad. All right, take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to No, it's not that bad. Is the internet that bad, Coco? Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Samson. Thank you for being here. It's a Monday. Yes, I am on the road. If you're listening to this, you have no idea other than the bad internet. Maybe I should carry internet with me. I mean, Meadowlark has me carrying all this other stuff. Can you carry internet, Coca? Is there a way to do that? If there is, I'm sure IT will tell me. No matter what my schedule is, no matter how many graduation ceremonies there are, and believe me, this college I'm at, they got a lot of ceremonies. I still watch a movie. I do. On Disney Plus, there is a documentary about Elton John. I need to talk about it, Coca, for a couple minutes, if you don't mind. It's called Elton John, Never Too Late. It's on Disney Plus. It is the story. It's not like Rocket Man, which is a movie that I've told you to watch with Taron Egerton, though I don't think that's his last name. I'm having a moment. I think it's the internet. I can hear it being slow in my ear right now, which is causing me to forget names, which is not something I normally do. Elton John documentary. If you don't like Elton John, it's fine. You'll still be interested in how someone does what they do with a level of greatness, dealing with nerves, dealing with addiction, dealing with what it is to be a rock star. It sounds like one of those things like a professional athlete. Oh, I'd give anything. I'd give anything to be a professional athlete. What I would like to do is be an actor. I want to be a rock star. Meanwhile, actors want to be rock stars. Rock stars want to be actors. All of them want to be professional athletes. Professional athletes want to be business people. It's actually funny to think about what we are all like because we're all the same. We all do what we do, but we think that something that someone else is doing is better than what we're doing. So wouldn't it make sense to try to believe that we'd prefer to be somewhere else instead of in the present where we are? Elton John wanted to be a rock star. Elton John, as a rock star, wants to be a rock star. The other projects that he's doing that are fun to think about and read about, they're cool. But those are just distractions. This movie called Never Too Late talks about what he did, how he did it, showing concert footage, showing just his talk about for love of the game. It's worth your time, I promise. I feel fat. I have a issue, as you know, with body dysmorphia. I've talked about that a lot on this show. I'm constantly covering my stomach in pictures. I'm feeling it. I don't want to even consider the term dad bod while I'm definitely a father. I'm just telling you that it has nothing to do with TV, but it sort of does when I see myself on camera. But I was this way before I was ever in public. I was always very conscious of how I looked and not happy about it. It's just a thing. Therapy's helping, but hasn't cured it. Anyhow, I get the people who use weight loss drugs. I do. People want to be thinner. It is a huge industry. It used to be all about Weight Watchers. Nutrisystem. Meals on wheels. Now there's drugs you can take. The best pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies. His name is Jose Alvarado. He has now been suspended for 80 games for performance-enhancing drugs. He got caught. He is now suspended under the rules of the collective bargaining agreement. 80 games, first try, 162 games, that's a full year, second try, lifetime. Not like permanently ineligible, lifetime till you're dead type of thing, but lifetime meaning after a year you can try to come back and we'll see what the league would do. Players get tested for steroids all the time. When a player tests positive, for whatever reason, the agent playbook has them telling a lie, an excuse. It wasn't me. I had no idea. I would never do anything like that. It was in a medicine I was taking. Who knew? We do. That's who knows. The team. We can look at whatever drug a player is taking and we can tell the player whether or not that drug will lead to a positive test. We tell the players, for the love of God, just don't take medicine without telling us what you're taking first. Alvarado is claiming that he took a weight loss drug. He was taking it during the off season, I guess, to make up for In-N-Out Burger, whatever. That's not shrapnel In-N-Out Burger. I could have said Shake Shack. I could have said Mickey D's. I could have said Pizza Pino. I could have said anything. He took a weight loss drug and now is out, not just for 80 games. He can't pitch for the Phillies in the playoffs. As a reminder, what was collectively bargained is that if you test positive during the course of a season and you're out for 80 games and it's before game number 82, where you could, in theory, come back after sitting out 80 games and play in regular season games, the rule is clear. You are not eligible to be on the postseason roster. Hard stop. Period. It's not even up for discussion. Alvarado, who was leading the Phillies with 7 saves, he had a 2.7 earned run average. He's appeared in 20 games. He's the closer. Done. And the best Dave Dombrowski could do, who is the Phillies president of baseball operations, caveat, I've known him for 26 years. He was the president of the Marlins. He was the GM of the Marlins, the first GM of the Marlins. Dave Dombrowski has had an amazing career. Titles with Boston, the Marlins in 97. Here's the thing. Dombrowski has to toe the company line. But doesn't he realize that when you've got a chance to be in the Hall of Fame, which he does, that you want to try to do better with your quote than what Dombrowski said? It's not something he did knowingly. I believe that. The way he talked to me. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of players about a lot of stuff, and I don't often believe anything they're saying. I want to believe it. I don't want to set my children up for failure. I don't want to put them in a corner where they're forced to lie, and I know they're going to lie, and then they do lie, and then I get angry that they lied. Why would I do that? Why would you ever ask a question when you know the answer to it and you're not inside a courtroom? That is the only time that you ought to be asking questions on direct examination where you know what the answer is. I don't really care when my players test positive for steroids or get suspended for whatever they get suspended for. There's been an appeals process or not, either way, for the player to take the suspension under the CBA, it is all based on acknowledgement and not willing to fight anymore. Why? Because you did it. Because you tested positive. That's it. End of story. End of negotiating. End of power. A weight loss drug. I'm sorry. Now Jordan Romano, my guy Jordan Romano, is going to be their closer. They just signed him in the offseason. Remember how bad he was in April, but he is on fire right now. They're going to hope Romano will ride this through to October and through October. But what goes on inside that clubhouse, it's anger. Anger at the player, not sympathy, not looking at himself without clothes on, getting into the shower and saying, oh, I get it. Nope, none of that. Do you remember when, oh, Coca, you're going to have to help me. What was the name of the Mets GM who got in trouble for futzing around with the injured list? He pretended players were injured, and then he got in trouble for it. Billy Epler. God, you know what? You know why Coca's the best producer? I mean, without bringing it inside the tent too much. Because when I say something, it takes him 1 second. He's right in there, right in the right ear with what it is. Remember what Billy Epler did? Here's the rule. It's very simple. You can't make up an injury to put a player on the injured list because they stink. And I told you that all teams do it. When Epler got in trouble, I told you I can't believe they're making an example out of Epler. That's such an anti-Steve Cohen thing because there's not one president or one GM that has not put a player on the injured list for something phantom. And I told you what the injuries are that you do. You don't do it with a concussion because, hey, that's concussion protocol, and people see that. It's the backache. That's always a good one. A little soreness. Aaron Nola is on the injured list for Philly. Aaron Nola, who I told you in many nothing personal picks of the day, he is having a year that is hard to imagine. His earned run average is 6.16. This is supposed to be with Zach Wheeler and Christopher Sanchez, maybe the top 3 deepest rotations. definitely a playoff rotation. And Nola's just been stinky. I don't mean a little stinky. I mean like hold your nose, light a match type of stinky. Now we find out he's got a sprained right ankle. Apparently, he suffered it last week during a pre-game agility drill. Just curious whether there was any cameras out there showing that sprained ankle. That's a good one. Do you know the last time Aaron Nola went on the injured list? About 8 years ago. Of course, they put out there that Nola wanted to pitch through the sprained ankle. The thing is, he was so bad that the club had no choice but to do something. So what you do is you put a guy, you hide him on the injured list. You tell everyone, don't worry, it's not serious. You say, listen, when he hurt his ankle, it hurt his back and various other things. His mechanics were different, and that's what's causing him to stink. The reason this is the old playbook is that what we were able to do is explain poor performance through some sort of injury that is caused by some sort of other injury that didn't seem serious at the time, but because of compensation for that, so to speak, injury, it causes change of mechanics, therefore change of approach, therefore change of results. For crying out loud, Meatloaf, we've been saying that for 25 years. And there is no way that baseball doesn't know that. Mike Hill and Rob Manfred and Dan Hallam, they're all aware of it. Why they came down to Billy Epler the way they did? Optics. They're not going to come down on Dave Dombrowski. They're not going to come down on the Phillies. The Phillies, as teams try to do, you paper it well enough. You show proof well enough. And here's the thing about sending a player onto the injured list when it's just that they stink, not that they're injured. It's not like they go to rehab or anything. What you do is you send them to your spring training facility, sometimes even keep them around the team. And you have them just have the knowledge that they're not going to be called on for those 10 days or 15 days. Knowing that they can just clear their head, knowing they can just get ready to come back off the injured list. It's why I frankly thought Devin Williams would be put on the injured list because of how bad he's been. And he's frankly gotten him a way to pitch out of it, which is amazing. I don't know if you saw the Subway Series. The Yankees took 2 out of 3, but I was far more interested in what the Angels did to the Dodgers. No one had swept the Dodgers at home since 2023. God knows the Angels hadn't swept the Dodgers since 2010. This is the Angels. Ron Washington hanging on by a toothpick, Angels. Sweeping the Dodgers. God, that's got to make baseball happy. Didn't make me happy with the nothing personal pick of the day. We got swept this weekend. I'm mortified. We had the Celtics plus 2.5 in Game 6. They had not clinched at home since 1999. They lost by 69 points. Joke. We had Clayton Kershaw coming back with the Dodgers, a huge favorite over the Angels on Saturday. Did I know Ohtani would go 0 for 6? Did I know Kershaw would give up 3 immediately? But then the Dodgers answer with 3 immediately. And I'm like, here we go. And still the Angels won 11-9? Nope. Didn't know that either. Did I know that Aaron Gordon would hurt his hamstring when I had the Nuggets plus 7? Did I think that SGA would get over his nerves more than Jokic and Murray and Brown and everybody else? Nope. Makes us 59-64, Coca. God, do I hate losing all 3 during the weekend. All right, tonight. So here's how it works when a manager gets fired in baseball. Is that the players are upset, but then the new manager comes in, whether it's the interim manager or you name it full-time manager, doesn't matter. And it turns out the players really do want to win a game for their interim manager. For the Orioles, their interim manager is their third base coach. The Orioles would like to get him his first win. They haven't won a game since he started managing. He's 0-2. The Orioles are playing the Brewers. The Orioles are minus 105 over the Brewers. The Brewers, who have been, a hugely successful franchise. Hugely successful franchise. And this year it's catching up to them. They had found a way to cycle through starters and cycle through closers and switch them out and have young people ready to go. They signed Yelich to the huge deal. They've got Churio, who is theirs and signed and terrific. They just have not been as good as they have been in previous years. We are going to take the Orioles, and we'll revisit this tomorrow, for the first ever managerial win for Tony. And they'll celebrate as though they're not 16-30. Managers are looking for the hot streak. They're looking for the moment in their season when they can say, hey, all right, we've hit rock bottom, or hey, we're turning this around. Did you see what the Minnesota Twins have been doing? They had won up to 13 in a row before they finally lost yesterday. The Brewers hung on to win. The aforementioned Jackson Churio had a great catch, robbed the Twins of a home run. But the Twins got themselves right back in the AL Central. And little known fact, even after winning 13 in a row, the Twins, what they did is saved Rocco Baldelli's job, number one. Number two, because Rocco Baldelli was going to get fired if they didn't get this season turned around. He's been there about right. You get the 7-year itch with your manager. He's been there about right in his 7th season, saying, you know what, we got to make a change, and we've got the record that would warrant it. And the Twins do what they do. They recover with a big streak during the regular season. They make the playoffs and then get swept. I mean, at some point, you got to realize it's what they do, don't you? What's hard to imagine is that in the process of this winning streak, Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton collided into each other. Correa is now on the concussion list. Buxton has not played in a couple days. He's hurt, I believe. They've never been able to get Royce Lewis to stay healthy. They're getting great pitching right now. Just phenomenal pitching, which is how you win 13 games in a row. Their bullpen, their rotation has all been top-notch, best in baseball type of stuff. And when you have a winning streak like that and you're still looking 5 games up at the Detroit Tigers, you're despondent. Because what we say internally is, hey, we're one 12-game winning streak away from being right there. We're there. They had to win 13 in a row, and they're not right there. They're still 5 games back behind 3 other teams in the American League Central, which I could argue pretty persuasively is a way better division than the American League East. There's more teams above 500 in the AL Central than there are in the AL East. Now, it is true the Gardens just got swept by the Reds. That is true. That's still Central, Coca. All right, I'm going to give you a wait to see right now. Wait to see is when we tell you something's going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. We told you that the Brandon Hyde was not a wait to see. It was part of the May predictions, which we do on the first day of every month. Wow, Coca, that means Monday, June 2nd will be our June predictions. Monday, June 2nd. That day seems meaningful to us. Wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen. The Minnesota Twins are not going to make the playoffs. And Rocco Baldelli will not be managing the Twins next year. Book it, Coca. Put it in the document on davidsamsonpodcast.com, please, where you can see all of our wait to sees. That while the Twins have used these winning streaks during the season to cover all that ails them as they get off to bad starts or they cannot figure out how to have sustained success, to say nothing of playoff success, while the Twins are trying to be sold. And what the Pohlads have said is this team will be sold by the start of next season. It is their true belief, though we don't know who the buyers are. I am fascinated to watch as this unfolds while the Twins have lost market share to the Minnesota Timberwolves in a way that isn't going away anytime soon. It is a T-Wolf city now when the Twins used to have complete control. When the Vikings, the Twinkies have to be looking at the empty seats. They have to be thinking to themselves, we got to do something to change this up. It's a relatively new stadium. We're falling behind in revenue. We're falling behind in the standings. They're looking around at their great sponsors, of which I was always jealous because there's such great corporate support up in Minnesota. They're looking around and saying, hey, Rocco, it's probably not going to be good enough. Why? Because it's just business. We'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.
you.